Commander Vecthar stood at the observation window of the Coalition Summit Station, watching the stars. He had lived for 200 years and fought in 17 wars. His people, the Altheans, were born warriors. They felt no fear, no doubt, no weakness. Their minds worked like machines, always calculating, always logical. Today something new was happening. The humans were coming. Vecthar had read the reports about Earth and its people. They were a young species, barely 500 years into space travel. Their bodies were weak compared to most aliens. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. They broke easily and died from things that would barely hurt an Althean. Yet somehow, they had won every war they fought. The doors opened. 3 humans walked into the command center. The first was a man in a dark blue uniform. He walked with confidence, his head high. This was Captain Minho, leader of the Terran Defense Force. Behind him came Lieutenant Hana, a woman with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. The third was Sergeant Taeyang, built strong and carrying himself like a soldier who had seen real battle. Vecthar scanned them with his neural implants. Their bodies registered as fragile, skin too soft, bones too brittle, hearts beating too fast. His computer calculated they would survive approximately 47 seconds in direct combat against a Vol warrior. "Commander Vecthar," Minho said, extending his hand. "Thank you for having us." Vecthar looked at the hand. He knew this was a human greeting called a handshake. He took it. The human's hand was warm, soft, and squeezed with surprising strength. "Captain Minho, I am your liaison for the joint operation," Vecthar said. His voice came out flat, emotionless. That was normal for his species. They moved to the tactical room where holographic displays showed the current war situation. The Vol swarm was spreading across the outer rim like a disease. Red markers showed destroyed colonies. Entire star systems had gone dark. "The Vol consume everything," Vecthar explained. "They are a hive mind. No individuals, only the collective. They reproduce faster than we can kill them. Standard projections show the Coalition losing within 2 years." Minho studied the display. His face showed something Vecthar's implants identified as concern. The captain's heart rate had increased. Stress hormones flooded his system. Yet his voice stayed calm. "We've fought hive minds before," Minho said. "They're tough, but they have weaknesses. They don't adapt well to chaos." "Chaos is inefficient," Vecthar stated. "The Coalition fights with order and precision." "Maybe that's why you're losing," Taeyang said. The other Coalition commanders turned to look at the sergeant. One of them, a tall alien with blue skin, made an angry sound. "Your species has been in space for barely a moment," the blue alien said. "Do not presume to lecture us on warfare." Taeyang didn't back down. "I'm not lecturing. I'm stating facts. We've read your battle reports. You fight the Vol the same way every time. Perfect formations, calculated retreats, acceptable casualties. But the Vol don't care about your calculations. They just keep coming." "And what do humans do differently?" Vecthar asked. He was genuinely curious. Minho stepped forward. "We don't fight to minimize losses. We fight to win. There's a difference." "Explain," Vecthar said. "When we fight, we give everything. We don't calculate acceptable casualties because we don't accept any casualties. Every person matters. Every life is worth fighting for." Minho looked directly at Vecthar. "We fight like every battle is our last." Vecthar processed this. It made no tactical sense. Resources were resources. Some losses were mathematically acceptable to achieve victory. That was basic logic. "Your doctrine appears emotionally motivated," Vecthar observed. "It is," Hana said, speaking for the first time. "We fight with everything we have because we're fighting for people we love, our families, our friends, our home." Love, friend, home. Vecthar's translator provided definitions, but they seemed incomplete. These were concepts his species didn't fully understand. Altheans had no families, only breeding pairs assigned by genetics. They had no friends, only unit members. They had no attachment to places, only strategic locations. The meeting continued. They discussed fleet positions, supply lines, and engagement protocols. The humans asked questions that seemed strange to Vecthar. They wanted to know about evacuation routes for civilians. They wanted to know which colonies had children. They wanted to know names of the officers they would serve with. Names. Another human obsession. Altheans had designation codes. Clean. Efficient. But humans insisted on using individual names for everyone. After the meeting, Vecthar found Minho looking at pictures on a small device. They showed humans of various ages, smiling. "Your tactical data?" Vecthar asked. "My family," Minho said. "My wife Sora, my daughter Yunji, my son Hyun. I look at them before every mission." "Why?" "To remember what I'm fighting for." Vecthar studied the images. He saw no tactical value in them. Yet Minho stared at them like they were the most important thing in the universe. "Your species forms strong emotional bonds," Vecthar observed. "We do," Minho agreed. "It's what makes us human." "Does it not create vulnerabilities? If you care deeply for these individuals, their loss would cause you psychological damage." Minho smiled, but it was sad. "Yes, losing someone you love destroys a part of you. But that's the price of loving them. And I wouldn't trade a single moment with them to avoid that pain." This made no logical sense to Vecthar. His people avoided all attachments specifically to prevent such vulnerabilities. Yet here was Minho, a decorated military commander, deliberately choosing vulnerability. "I do not understand your species," Vecthar admitted. "That's okay," Minho said, putting away the device. "You'll understand us better after we fight together. Humans are easier to know in action than in words." The next day, the joint fleet assembled. Althean ships formed perfect geometric patterns, each vessel in exact position. The human ships spread out in looser formations, more flexible, ready to move quickly. Vecthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the ANS Dominion. On his display, he could see Minho's ship, the Terran vessel called Defiant. It was smaller than most coalition ships, but packed with weapons and armor. "All ships, this is command," Vecthar transmitted. "We proceed to Helios system. Estimated Vol presence is significant. Maintain formation discipline and follow engagement protocols." Minho's voice came through. "Defiant acknowledges. We're ready to show you how humans fight, Commander." As the fleet entered hyperspace, Vecthar reviewed human combat records again. The numbers didn't make sense. Humans took casualties that should have broken any fighting force, yet they kept fighting. They won battles they should have lost. They survived situations that killed stronger species. His tactical computer could not explain it. The data showed that human combat effectiveness actually increased when they suffered losses, when they witnessed their comrades fall. It was completely illogical. Vecthar didn't know it yet, but he was about to learn the answer to this mystery. He was about to witness something that would change him forever. He was about to discover fear. But first, they had to fight. The Helios system burned with weapons fire. Vecthar watched from his command throne as the battle unfolded according to plan. The Vol swarm had been waiting for them, but that was expected. His fleet outnumbered them by a small margin. Victory probability stood at 63%. Acceptable odds. The Vol ships were ugly things, grown rather than built. They looked like massive insects with weapons grafted onto their carapaces. They moved in swarms, attacking with no concern for their own survival. The hive mind simply threw bodies at problems until the problems died. "All ships, maintain formation," Vecthar ordered. "Target priority Alpha. Fire at will. His Althean fleet responded perfectly. Each ship in its assigned position, each weapon firing at calculated intervals, no wasted shots, no unnecessary risks. This was how civilized species fought wars. Then he looked at the human formation. Captain Minho's ships were supposed to hold the left flank. They were supposed to provide covering fire for the Althean advance. They were supposed to follow the tactical plan. They weren't following the plan. "Captain Minho, you are out of position," Vecthar transmitted. "Return to formation." "Negative, Commander," Minho's voice crackled back. "We've got a better angle from here. Trust us." Trust. Another human concept. Vecthar didn't trust. He calculated. But before he could respond, the human ships moved. They didn't fly in neat patterns like Althean vessels. They moved like birds, each ship following the others in formations that seemed random but somehow worked. They dove between Vol ships, fired at point-blank range, and danced away before the enemy could respond. It was chaos. It was inefficient. It was beautiful. "Lieutenant Hana's fighter wing is engaging the enemy carrier," his tactical officer reported. Vecthar pulled up the feed. Hana led a squadron of small human fighters against one of the largest Vol ships. His computer calculated their odds of survival at 12%. "Order her to retreat," Vecthar commanded. "She's not responding to retreat orders, Commander," the officer said. On the screen, Vecthar watched the human fighters weave through enemy fire. They moved too fast, turned too sharp, did things that should have torn their ships apart. 3 fighters exploded, consumed by Vol plasma, but the rest kept going. Then something happened that changed everything. A Vol bioship released a swarm of smaller attack drones. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They surrounded Hana's wing, cutting off all escape routes. The fighters were trapped. "Wing is cut off," the tactical officer stated. "No viable extraction. Recommend we write them off as losses." "Write them off. Standard procedure." Vecthar prepared to give the order. Defiant to all human units, Minho's voice suddenly filled the comm channel. "Hana's wing is in trouble. Who's with me?" "Taeyang here. On my way." Jiho squadron responding. "Yuna's bombers inbound." A dozen human ships broke formation and dove straight toward the trap. They didn't ask for orders. They didn't calculate the odds. They just went. "What are they doing?" Vecthar's tactical officer asked. "They'll all die." But they didn't die. The human reinforcements hit the Vol swarm like a hammer. They flew in patterns that made no sense, constantly changing, never where the enemy predicted, and they were screaming. Vecthar could hear them over the open comm channel, battle cries, curses, names being shouted. "Get off her, you ugly bastard!" That was Taeyang. "Hana, break left now!" That was Jiho. "I got your 6! I got your 6!" Someone else. They fought like animals, like things that had no business flying spacecraft. They rammed damaged fighters into Vol ships rather than ejecting. They used debris as weapons. They did everything wrong by Althean standards, and it worked. Hana's wing escaped. Most of them survived. The humans regrouped, damaged but intact. But then Vecthar saw Jiho's fighter. It was heavily damaged, trailing atmosphere. The pilot had minutes at most. "Jiho, eject," Hana ordered. "Get to a recovery ship." "Negative," Jiho responded. His voice was calm, too calm. "My ejection system is dead, but I've still got engines." "Jiho, no," Minho said. His voice had something in it that Vecthar's translator marked as distress. "Captain, it's been an honor," Jiho said. "Tell my family I love them." Then he turned his dying fighter toward the largest Vol carrier and pushed his engines to maximum. Vecthar watched the fighter accelerate. The Vol ship tried to shoot it down, but Jiho was moving too fast, weaving too much. He covered the distance in seconds. The impact was massive. The fighter's remaining weapons detonated inside the carrier. The explosion tore through the bioship's core. Secondary explosions rippled outward. When the fire cleared, the carrier was breaking apart. 17 Vol ships died in that explosion. One human pilot traded his life for 17 enemy vessels. Inefficient, Vekthar's tactical computer calculated. One fighter for one carrier is acceptable, but pilot survival should have been prioritized. But the human fleet's response was not what the computer predicted. Their combat effectiveness didn't decrease from the loss. It increased. "That's for Jiho!" someone screamed over the comm. "Make them pay!" No mercy! The human ships attacked with renewed fury. They stopped following any tactical pattern at all. They just fought, pure and savage. Vekthar watched as human pilots performed maneuvers that should have killed them. Some did kill them, but the others kept fighting harder. The Vol were breaking. The hive mind didn't understand what it was facing. It expected rational opponents who would retreat when damaged, who would surrender when outnumbered. The humans did neither. They fought like the universe itself had wronged them. The battle ended 3 hours later. The coalition won. The Vol swarm was destroyed. The cost was heavy. 37 human ships lost. 212 pilots dead. For Altheans, this would be entered into reports as acceptable casualties. The mission objective was achieved. But when Vekthar toured the human ship after the battle, he found something unexpected. In a small room called a memorial bay, the surviving humans had gathered. In the center of the room, a holographic image floated. It showed Jiho, smiling in his flight suit. Around the image, humans stood in silence. Some were crying. Vekthar scanned them and confirmed it was tears. Their bodies were leaking water from their eyes. His database said this was a response to emotional distress. Captain Minho stood at the front. His face was wet. "Jiho was my academy roommate," Minho said to the gathered humans. "He loved flying more than anything. He loved his family. He loved terrible jokes and good food. He was my friend." Other humans spoke, sharing memories of the dead pilot. They talked about his life, his personality, his dreams. They transformed a casualty report into a person. Vekthar approached Minho after the ceremony ended. "Your species wastes water when warriors fall," Vekthar observed. Minho turned to him. His eyes were red. "We don't waste it, Commander. We honor it. Jiho wasn't a casualty report. He was a person, a friend." "Friend," Vekthar repeated. His translator had given him a definition before, but it still made no sense. "An individual you have emotional attachment to." "Someone you'd die for," Minho corrected. "Someone who'd die for you. We don't just fight together. We care about each other." Vekthar processed this. Altheans did not have friends. They had unit designations. They worked together with perfect efficiency because they felt nothing for each other. No attachment meant no distraction. But these humans fought better because they cared. Their emotional attachments made them stronger, not weaker. "I do not understand," Vekthar admitted. "I know," Minho said, "but maybe one day you will." Later, Vekthar stood alone on the observation deck, reviewing the battle data. His computer kept flagging anomalies in human behavior. They took unnecessary risks. They prioritized rescuing individuals over tactical advantages. They fought harder after suffering losses. None of it made sense. But the results were undeniable. The humans won, not because they were stronger or better armed. They won because they fought like every life mattered, like every person was worth dying for. Vekthar filed his report. He noted the human tactical irregularities. He noted their emotional responses to casualties. He noted their effectiveness despite, or perhaps because of, these factors. He did not note the small question forming in his processors, the question that would eventually change everything. What would it feel like to have something worth dying for? He didn't know yet. But the answer was coming, and when it came, it would come with fear. The alert came at 0400 station time. Vekthar was reviewing tactical data when his command screen turned red. "Vol fleet detected. his tactical officer announced. "Bearing directly for Kepler Station. Force size is—" The officer paused. "Commander, they're sending everything." Vecthar pulled up the scan. 300 Vol bioships, all converging on a single target. Kepler Station was a civilian colony, home to 2 million people. Most of them were human families, scientists, engineers, teachers, children, not soldiers. His computer calculated the defense parameters. The coalition fleet in range numbered 42 ships. Against 300, the probability of successful defense was 3%. "Send evacuation orders to Kepler Station," Vecthar commanded. "Calculate the number of transport ships needed to remove all civilians." The answer came back in seconds. They would need 6 days to evacuate everyone. The Vol would arrive in 9 hours. "Recommend immediate retreat," his tactical officer said. "We cannot hold against those numbers. We can evacuate perhaps 10% of the civilian population if we begin now." 10%. 200,000 people saved. 1,800,000 left to die. Acceptable losses by Althean calculation. Vecthar opened a channel to Captain Minho's ship. "Captain, the situation at Kepler is not defensible. We will evacuate what we can and retreat to the secondary line." Silence on the other end. Then Minho's voice, cold and hard. "No. Captain, the mathematics are clear. We cannot win this engagement." "I said no, Commander. Those are our people down there. My friend Sumin runs the research lab on Kepler. Dr. Doyen is there with his medical team. Families, children. We don't abandon them. Remaining at Kepler means death for your entire fleet." "Then we die," Minho said simply. "But we die protecting them. All human ships are moving to defensive positions around Kepler Station. You can retreat if you want, Commander. We're staying." The channel closed. Vecthar sat motionless on his command throne. The logical choice was clear. Retreat. Preserve the fleet. The loss of Kepler was regrettable but acceptable. But something in his processors hesitated. He thought of Jaiho ramming his fighter into the carrier. He thought of the humans crying over their fallen. He thought of Minho looking at pictures of his family. "All Althean ships," Vecthar heard himself say. "We will hold at Kepler Station." His bridge crew turned to stare at him. Altheans did not make illogical decisions. "Commander, that is not the optimal choice," his tactical officer stated. "I am aware," Vecthar said. "We hold regardless." The fleet took up defensive positions around Kepler. The station's shields were strong but not designed for sustained military assault. Marine Commander Yuna began organizing ground defenses with her troops, just in case the Vol broke through. The Vol arrived like a storm of flesh and chitin. They came in waves, crashing against the coalition defenses. Vecthar's ships fought with precision, but precision wasn't enough. There were too many enemies. "Hull breach on Deck 7, someone reported from Kepler Station. "Vol warriors are boarding." "Ground teams responding," Yuna's voice came through. "We've got this." But they didn't have it. The Vol were 3 meters tall, armored in bioplating, armed with razor claws and acid spit. Each one could tear through a dozen unarmored humans. Vecthar made a decision he would have considered impossible 3 weeks ago. "I'm going down there," he told his crew. "Transfer command to the second officer." He took a landing craft to Kepler Station's engineering deck. That's where the heaviest fighting was happening. He found Sergeant Taeyang there, leading a squad of human Marines. The corridor was a nightmare. Dead Vol littered the floor, dead humans too. The walls were scorched with plasma burns and melted from acid. The smell was overwhelming, even through Vecthar's filters. "Commander!" Taeyang saw him and actually smiled. The human was bleeding from a dozen wounds. "Welcome to the party." "Status?" Vecthar asked, checking his weapon. "We're holding them at the junction ahead, but they keep coming. We're running out of ammunition." An explosion rocked the corridor. Alarms screamed. Somewhere a child was crying. Children. There were children on this station. Vecthar's tactical database had noted their presence, but classified them as non-combatants, irrelevant to military operations. Now, hearing that crying, something in his processors flagged it as important. "There's a shelter 2 sections over," Tae-Yang said. "Civilian families. If the Vol break through here, they'll reach them in minutes." "We need reinforcements," Vecthar calculated. "No time. We're it." Another explosion. Closer this time. Then Vecthar heard something that made his cooling systems spike. Screaming. Not human screaming. Vol screaming. They were coming. The junction door exploded inward. Vol warriors poured through the breach, 20 of them, maybe more. Their claws gleamed in the emergency lighting. Their mandibles clicked with hunger. Vecthar's tactical computer calculated survival probability, 5%. Acceptable losses would be... The thought never completed, because he saw Tae-Yang move. The sergeant was already wounded. He had lost blood. His armor was cracked. He should have fallen back, called for retreat, preserved his life for another battle. Instead, he moved forward. Tae-Yang placed himself directly between the Vol swarm and the corridor leading to the civilian shelter. He was armed with only a plasma cutter now, his rifle empty. "Not today," Tae-Yang said. Then he screamed. It wasn't a scream of pain. It wasn't a scream of fear. It was something primal, something that came from deep in the human chest. A sound that said, "I am here, I am alive, and I will not yield." The Vol hesitated, just for a second. These creatures knew no fear, felt no emotion, but something in Tae-Yang's scream made them pause. That's when Vecthar felt it. Something cold spread through his neural pathways. His tactical systems flagged it as an error, a malfunction. But it wasn't an error, it was fear. Not fear of the Vol, not fear of dying. It was fear of what he saw in Tae-Yang's eyes. The sergeant wasn't calculating odds or considering tactical withdrawals. He had decided he would stand here until the universe itself broke, and if the universe wouldn't break, he would make it. Vecthar suddenly understood. This was what humans were. They were the species that looked at impossible odds and said no. They were the species that chose to stand when standing meant death. They weren't fighting because logic said they could win. They were fighting because surrender wasn't in their vocabulary. More humans arrived. Marines with names like Hyun and Yunji and Sang-woo. Each one saw the situation, saw the overwhelming odds, and moved toward danger instead of away from it. They fought with whatever they had. Rifles until the ammunition ran out, then pistols, then knives, then tools, then their bare hands. Vecthar fought alongside them. His weapon cut down Vol warriors with Althean precision, but he couldn't stop watching the humans. They were inefficient. They wasted energy on battle cries and protective maneuvers for each other. They took wounds saving their comrades. They were magnificent. The Vol kept coming. Vecthar's weapon overheated. A warrior's claw caught his shoulder, tearing through armor. He felt pain, real pain for the first time in decades. Then Tae-Yang was there, cutting the Vol down with his plasma cutter. The sergeant was missing his left arm now, torn off by a Vol claw. But he was still fighting. "Stay with me, Commander!" Tae-Yang shouted. "We hold this line!" And they did. Somehow, impossibly, they held. Reinforcements finally arrived. The Vol were pushed back. The corridor was secured. The civilians in the shelter were safe. Vecthar stood among the bodies, his systems struggling to process what had happened. He had experienced fear. Real fear. The kind that made his processors skip and his cooling systems fail. But not fear of death. Fear of understanding. He finally understood what it meant to fight beside humanity. They weren't just warriors. They were something else. Something that looked at certain death and chose to fight anyway. Something that valued lives they didn't even know over their own survival. They were terrifying. In the medical bay afterward, Vecthar found Tae-Yang. The sergeant was being fitted with a temporary prosthetic arm. He looked tired, but somehow still smiled when he saw Vekthar. "That was close," Taeyang said. "That was illogical," Vekthar responded. "You faced certain death for civilians you did not know. They were ours to protect. You lost your arm. Small price." Taeyang looked at his new prosthetic. "Besides, this one's got more weapon mounts." Vekthar sat down beside him. His wounds were being treated by medical drones, but he ignored them. "I felt something during the battle," Vekthar said quietly. "Something my species is not supposed to feel." "Fear?" Taeyang asked. "Yes." "How did you know?" "Because I saw the way you looked at us. Like you finally understood what we are." Taeyang's expression turned serious. "Humans are scary, Commander. Not because we're strong. We're not. We're fragile as hell. We're scary because we don't know how to quit. We don't understand surrender. When you fight beside us, you realize that we'll burn ourselves to ash before we let the people we protect come to harm." "That is what I feared," Vekthar admitted. "Not the Vol, not death. I feared understanding what your species truly is." "Welcome to knowing humans," Taeyang said, grinning despite his pain. "It's one hell of a ride." The battle for Kepler Station continued for 3 more days, but the Vol never broke through the defenses. Every time they tried, they met humans who refused to move, who refused to die, who refused to accept defeat. And alongside them, Vekthar fought. For the first time in his life, he wasn't fighting because of tactical necessity. He was fighting because he had learned what it meant to protect something. He had learned what it meant to feel. After Kepler Station was secured, Vekthar began writing reports that troubled his superiors back on the Althean homeworld. His language had changed. Where before he wrote about tactical efficiency and resource allocation, now he wrote about courage and sacrifice. Where before he calculated acceptable casualties, now he noted individual acts of heroism. His commanding officers sent him messages questioning his data. "Emotions are weakness," they stated in formal Althean language. "Your reports suggest you have been compromised by exposure to human psychology." Vekthar read their concerns and realized he didn't care about their opinions anymore. He had seen something they never would. He had felt something they thought impossible. The War Council met at Coalition Prime, a massive space station that served as the government center for all allied species. Representatives from a dozen worlds gathered to discuss the Vol threat. Vekthar attended as military liaison, sitting beside Captain Minho. The council argued about strategies and supply lines. They debated fleet movements and resource allocation. It was all very logical, very calculated. But Vekthar noticed something. The other species talked about the war like it was a math problem to solve. Only the humans talked about it like it was personal. "We need to strike at their homeworld," one council member said. "Cut off the head and the body dies." "The casualties would be massive," another responded. "Perhaps 70% of the assault force." "Acceptable," several voices agreed. But Minho stood up. His face was hard. "Acceptable? Those are people you're talking about. Soldiers with families, with lives, with dreams. You can't just mark them as acceptable losses." "Captain Minho," a tall alien diplomat said, "we understand you are emotional about this, but warfare requires difficult choices." "I'm not being emotional," Minho said, though his voice suggested otherwise. "I'm being realistic. You treat soldiers like numbers on a screen, but every number is a person, and if you ask them to die, you better have a damn good reason." The council muttered among themselves. Vekthar could see they thought Minho was being irrational, but he understood now. The captain wasn't being irrational, he was being human. After the council meeting, Minho invited Vekthar to the human quarters. It was unusual. Altheans didn't socialize. They didn't have gatherings or celebrations, but Vecthar accepted. The human section of Coalition Prime was different from the rest. Where other species kept their quarters clean and efficient, humans had decorated everywhere. Pictures on walls, plants growing in containers, music playing softly. It felt alive in a way Althean spaces never did. A group of humans had gathered in a common area. Lieutenant Hana was there, along with Sergeant Tai Yang, his new prosthetic arm gleaming. Marine Commander Yuna sat with her squad. Scientists Sumin and Doyen were there too, saved from Kepler Station. There were others, maybe 30 people total. They were doing something humans called remembering the fallen. In the center of the room, holographic images rotated slowly. Jiho, smiling in his flight suit, a Marine named Junho who died on Kepler, a pilot called Minji who didn't make it back from a patrol. A doctor named Nari who stayed behind to evacuate patients. The humans took turns speaking about each person. They told stories. They laughed at memories. They cried. Vecthar watched, his tactical systems trying to understand the purpose. His database provided the definition. This was a memorial service, a ceremony to honor the dead. But it was more than that. He could see it now. This wasn't just about remembering. It was about transforming pain into something else. They were taking their grief and turning it into strength. They were refusing to let their friends be forgotten. "Commander Vecthar," Minho called out. "Join us, please." Vecthar moved forward, uncertain. The humans made space for him in their circle. Minho poured a dark liquid into small glasses and handed one to Vecthar. "It's called whiskey," Minho explained. "We drink to honor those who fell. You don't have to drink it if your biology can't handle it, but the gesture matters." Vecthar took the glass. His internal systems warned him the liquid would have no nutritional value and might cause minor system disruptions. He didn't care. To Jiho, Minho raised his glass, who saved his friends even when it cost him everything. To Jiho, the others repeated. They drank. Vecthar sipped the liquid. It burned. It was highly inefficient. It was perfect. The ceremony continued. Each person spoke about someone they lost, not just their military record or their tactical contributions. They spoke about who these people were, their favorite foods, their bad jokes, their dreams. Vecthar listened to all of it. His processors tried to categorize the information, but couldn't. There was no tactical value here, no strategic benefit, just humans choosing to remember. "Why do you do this?" Vecthar finally asked. "Remembering only reinforces the pain of loss. It would be more efficient to forget and move forward." Minho looked at him with tired eyes. "Commander, can I ask you something? What do you remember about the Althean soldiers who died in the last battle?" Vecthar accessed his memory files. "Unit designations A7743, A9821, A3405. "No," Minho interrupted gently. "I mean, do you remember them? Who they were? What they cared about? What made them unique?" Vecthar processed the question. The answer was no. Althean soldiers were interchangeable units. When one fell, another took its place. There was nothing unique to remember. "I see," he said quietly. "That's the difference between us," Minho continued. "You see soldiers as replaceable parts in a machine. We see them as people, irreplaceable, unique people. Yes, it hurts to remember them. Yes, it would be easier to forget. But if we forget, they truly die. As long as we remember, they're still with us." "But they are dead," Vecthar stated. "Remembering cannot change that fact." "It's not about changing facts," Hana said, speaking up. "It's about meaning. Jiho's death meant something because we remember why he did it. Junho's sacrifice meant something because we carry his memory forward. They gave their lives for us, so the least we can do is not forget them." Taiyang raised his prosthetic arm. "I think about the people I lost every time I use this arm. Every time I fight. They're the reason I keep going. Their memory is my fuel. Vecthar tried to understand. His species had no concept of this. Altheans fought for tactical objectives, for strategic goals, for calculated outcomes. But humans fought for something else. You fight for love, Vecthar said, surprising himself with the word. Minho smiled. Yes, that's exactly it. Do you know why we fight so hard, Commander? It's not duty. It's not orders. We fight because we love. We love these people. He gestured to the room. We love our families back home. We love the idea that maybe we can build something better than what we have. Love is vulnerability, Vecthar observed, repeating something Minho had said weeks ago. It creates weakness. Enemies can exploit it. That's true, Minho agreed. Love does make us vulnerable. Losing someone we love destroys a part of us. But here's what you're missing, Commander. That vulnerability is also our greatest strength. Explain. Minho stood and walked to the holographic images of the fallen. When you love someone, when you care deeply about something, you have a reason to fight harder than logic says you should. You push past your limits. You survive things that should kill you. You win battles you should lose. All because you have something worth fighting for. He turned back to Vecthar. Yes, loving people means I can be hurt by losing them, but I wouldn't trade that for anything. The pain of loss is the price of love, and every moment of love is worth that price. Vecthar processed this. It made no tactical sense. But as he looked around the room at these humans, scarred and wounded, and still somehow smiling, he began to understand. They weren't strong because they were invulnerable. They were strong because they chose to be vulnerable. They opened themselves to pain and loss, and that choice somehow made them unbreakable. I felt fear at Kepler Station, Vecthar admitted to the room. For the first time in my existence, I was afraid. The humans didn't laugh. They didn't judge. Taiyang nodded. You felt it during the siege, didn't you? When you realized what we were willing to do? Yes. I feared not for myself, but for understanding what your species truly is. You are terrifying. We are, Hana agreed. But that fear you felt? That's just the beginning. Of what? Of caring, she said simply. Fear means you have something to lose. And having something to lose means you have something worth protecting. The gathering continued late into the night. The humans shared stories, drank their whiskey, laughed and cried together. They insisted Vecthar stay, and he did. For the first time in his 200 years, Vecthar felt something he couldn't categorize. It wasn't fear. It wasn't tactical concern. It was something warmer, something that made his cooling systems work harder, but in a good way. Later, he realized what it was. Belonging. He belonged here, with these illogical, emotional, terrifying humans. When he finally left to return to his quarters, Minho walked him to the door. Commander, I have a question for you, Minho said. If you had to choose between following orders and protecting the people in that room, what would you choose? 2 weeks ago, the answer would have been immediate. Orders. Always orders. That was what Altheans did. But now, standing in the doorway, Vecthar thought about Taiyang losing his arm to save civilians, about Jiho ramming his fighter into a carrier, about all these humans who chose people over protocol. I would protect them, Vecthar said. Minho smiled. Then you're one of us now, Commander. Welcome to humanity. As Vecthar walked back to his ship, he thought about what Minho said. Welcome to humanity. He wasn't human. He would never be human. His biology was completely different. But maybe humanity wasn't about biology. Maybe it was about choice. The choice to care. The choice to feel. The choice to fight for something beyond pure logic. His tactical systems flagged his behavior as anomalous. His emotional responses were outside normal Althean parameters. By all accounts, he was compromised. and he had never felt more alive. The war had reached its final stage. Every battle, every loss, every sacrifice had led to this moment. The Coalition fleet assembled at the edge of Vol's space, preparing for the assault on the throne world, the source of the hive mind itself. Vecthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the massive armada. Every species had sent their best warriors. The Altheans with their perfect formations, the Kryn with their heavy weapons, the Tal Shek with their speed, and at the center of it all, the human fleet, smaller than the others, less advanced technology, softer bodies. But after fighting beside them for months, Vecthar knew the truth. The humans were the heart of this force. They were the reason everyone else was still fighting. Captain Minho's voice came through the command channel. "All fleet commanders, this is Captain Minho. I won't lie to you. This is going to be the hardest fight we've ever faced. The Vol will throw everything at us. A lot of us won't make it home." Vecthar heard other commanders shift uncomfortably. They weren't used to such blunt talk about casualties. But Minho continued. "But here's what I know. I've fought beside the best warriors in the galaxy. I've watched Altheans hold lines that should have broken. I've seen Kryn warriors fight against impossible odds. I've witnessed every species here do things that their tactical computers said were impossible." Vecthar felt something warm in his chest. Pride. He recognized it now. "And I've learned something from all of you, just like you've learned from us. We're not just an alliance anymore. We're a family. And families don't leave anyone behind. We go in together, we fight together, and we make it out together. No retreat, no surrender. No retreat, no surrender." Taeyang's voice echoed. "No retreat, no surrender," Hana repeated. Then other voices joined. Kryn, Tal Shek, even Altheans. The whole fleet took up the chant. Vecthar heard his own voice join them. "No retreat, no surrender." His tactical computer flagged this as highly irregular. Altheans didn't chant. They didn't get emotional before battle. They simply fought. But Vecthar was no longer a standard Althean. He had learned to feel. The fleet jumped into hyperspace. When they emerged, they found the Vol throne world waiting. It was massive, covered in biostructures that pulsed with life. And surrounding it, the largest Vol fleet ever assembled. Thousands of bioships, all connected to the hive mind below. Vecthar's tactical computer calculated the odds. 2% probability of victory. 98% probability of total fleet destruction. He should have ordered a retreat. By every logical calculation, this battle was unwinnable. "All ships," Vecthar transmitted, "engage at will. For the fallen, for the future, for each other." The battle began. It was chaos from the first moment. The Vol came at them in waves, using their numbers to overwhelm the Coalition defenses. Ships exploded. Soldiers died. The careful battle plans fell apart within minutes, but the fleet didn't break. Vecthar watched as human pilots flew into gaps in the Vol formation, drawing fire away from damaged ships. He watched Kryn warriors board Vol carriers, fighting hand to hand. He watched Tal Shek scouts identify weak points in real time. And he watched himself command differently than he ever had before. He wasn't calculating acceptable casualties. He was trying to save everyone, every ship, every life. It was inefficient. It was impossible. It was what Minho would do. "Commander, hull breach on deck 4, his tactical officer reported. "Vol warriors are boarding." "Seal that deck," Vecthar ordered. "Send all available troops." "Commander, sealing that deck means abandoning 12 crew members." 2 months ago, Vecthar would have sealed it without hesitation. 12 losses to save the ship. Logical. Acceptable. Now, he grabbed his weapon. "I'm going down there." His bridge crew stared at him. "Commander, you cannot abandon your post." "Transfer command to second officer," Vecthar said. "I won't abandon our people." He reached deck 4 with a security team. The Vol had already killed 3 crew members. 9 remained, trapped behind emergency barriers. Taiyang was there too, leading a human marine squad. "Thought you might show up," Taiyang grinned, his prosthetic arm already covered in vole blood. "Ready to dance?" They fought side by side. Vectar's precise shots combined with Taiyang's aggressive tactics. They pushed the vole back, saved the trapped crew, sealed the breach. But the battle above was going badly. "Fleet casualties at 40%, the second officer reported. "Multiple ships destroyed. Vole forces are overwhelming our lines." On his personal screen, Vectar watched friendly markers disappear. Each one was a ship. Each ship held hundreds of people. People with names, with families, with dreams. People he cared about. Then he saw Captain Minho's ship, the Defiant. Break formation. It was heading straight for the planet's surface, straight for the Queen's chamber at the heart of the Vole hive. "Minho, what are you doing?" Vectar transmitted. "Someone has to take out the Queen," Minho responded. His voice was calm. Too calm. "If I can reach her, the hive mind collapses. The Vole lose coordination. You will not survive that assault." "I know." Vectar's cooling systems failed for a moment. He knew this feeling now. It was fear, but not fear of dying, fear of losing someone important. "Captain, I order you to return to formation." "Sorry, Commander, I've got to do this. Tell my family I love them. Tell Hana she's in command. And Vectar, thank you for learning to care. That's what we needed most from you." The Defiant dove through Vole defenses. Hana's fighter wing formed up around it, providing cover. Other human ships joined them. They were creating a corridor, sacrificing themselves to let Minho through. Vectar watched ships explode, watched friends die. Each loss felt like something tearing inside him. But Minho kept going. The Defiant was on fire, leaking atmosphere, half its weapons destroyed. But it kept pushing forward. Then Vectar made a decision. Not a calculated one. Not a logical one. An emotional one. "All Althean ships," he transmitted, "form up on me. We're going down there." "Commander, that is suicide," his second officer protested. "I know," Vectar said, "but that's what you do for family. All ships, follow me in." The Althean fleet broke formation and dove after Minho. Behind them, every other species did the same. The careful defensive positions were abandoned. Every ship committed to the assault. It was tactically insane. It was the most human thing Vectar had ever seen. They fought through Vole defenses. Ships died by the dozens. But they kept pushing, kept fighting, kept moving forward because stopping meant letting Minho die alone. The Defiant reached the Queen's chamber. Minho's last transmission came through, breaking apart with static. "This is Captain Minho. It's been an honor serving with you all. See you on the other side." Then the Defiant's core detonated inside the Queen's chamber. The explosion was massive. It tore through the planet's crust. The Queen died in that blast, and with her, the hive mind shattered. Across the battlefield, Vole ships stopped moving. The coordination that made them deadly disappeared. They became mindless drones, easy to destroy. But Vectar didn't care about the victory. He stared at the empty space where Minho's ship had been. Gone. The captain was gone. The man who taught him to feel, who showed him what it meant to care, who welcomed him into humanity's family. Gone. Vectar felt wetness on his face. His cooling systems were leaking. No, that wasn't right. His tactical database provided the correct term. Tears. He was crying. For the first time in Althean history, one of their kind shed tears for a fallen comrade. The battle ended. The Vole were defeated. The coalition had won. But the cost was terrible. 60% casualties, thousands of ships destroyed, tens of thousands dead. Captain Minho, Pilot Junho, Dr. Nari, Engineer Sangwoo. So many names. Too many names. The surviving fleet limped back to Coalition Prime. The victory celebration was quiet, somber. This wasn't a triumph. This was survival. Vecthar attended the memorial service. It was huge, held in the main plaza of Coalition Prime. Holographic images of the fallen rotated above the crowd. Thousands of faces. Every species, every world. Lieutenant Hana, now Captain Hana, stood at the front. Her face was wet with tears, but her voice was strong. "Captain Minho once told me that we fight because we love," she said to the assembled crowd. "We love our families. We love our friends. We love the future we're trying to build. Today, we honor everyone who gave their lives for that love." She began reading names. It took hours. Every name was spoken. Every person was remembered. When she reached Minho's name, her voice broke, but she continued. She told stories about him, his terrible jokes, his dedication to his family, his belief that everyone mattered. Vecthar stood when it was his turn to speak. The crowd fell silent. An Althean speaking at a memorial service was unprecedented. "I did not understand humans when I first met them," Vecthar said. His voice carried across the plaza. "I thought emotions were weakness. I thought caring was inefficiency. I thought love was a tactical vulnerability." He paused, looking at the faces in the crowd, human faces, alien faces, all of them touched by loss. "Captain Minho taught me I was wrong. Emotions are not weakness, they are strength. Caring is not inefficiency. It is the reason we fight. Love is not vulnerability. It is power." He looked up at Minho's holographic image. "For the first time, fear struck me while fighting beside humanity. Not fear of death, fear of loss. Fear of understanding what I would be losing if they fell. That fear taught me something my species never knew. It taught me what it means to truly live." His voice grew stronger. "The Althean High Command believes I have been compromised. They are correct. I have been compromised by friendship, by loyalty, by love, and I would not change that for anything." He placed his hand over his heart, copying a human gesture he had seen Minho use. "Captain Minho, you gave your life so others could live. You showed us all what real courage means. You will not be forgotten. None of them will be forgotten." Vecthar looked out at the crowd. "I make this promise to everyone we lost. We will build the future you died protecting. We will remember your sacrifice, and we will carry your memory forward in everything we do." The crowd stood. Every species, every world, united in grief and determination. Days later, Vecthar stood in the newly constructed memorial garden on Coalition Prime. Holographic images of the fallen rotated in eternal vigil. He came here every day now, to remember, to honor, to feel. Captain Hana found him there. She stood beside him in silence for a while. "He would be proud of you," she finally said. "You've changed. You're not the same Althean who showed up at that first meeting." "No," Vecthar agreed. "I am not. I am something new, something between Althean logic and human emotion." "What will you do now?" Vecthar had received his orders from the Althean High Command. Return home. Submit to psychological evaluation. Be restored to proper Althean emotional parameters. He had sent back a simple response. "No." "I will remain here," Vecthar said. "I will continue to serve alongside humans. I will teach other Altheans what I have learned, if they will listen. And I will remember everyone we lost." Hana smiled through her tears. "That sounds like something Minho would do." "I hope so," Vecthar said. "He was my captain, my teacher, my friend." Friend. The word no longer needed translation. He understood it completely now. They stood together in the garden as the sun set over Coalition Prime. The holographic images glowed brighter in the darkness. Thousands of faces, thousands of stories. Vecthar had learned that the greatest strength in the universe wasn't logic or calculation. It was the willingness to care, even when caring hurt. To love, even when love made you vulnerable. To stand for others, even when standing meant sacrifice. He had learned what it meant to be human, not in biology but in spirit, and for the first time in his existence, Vecthar knew he was exactly where he belonged.